Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. Let me adjust maybe my volume. It's a little bit of cracking. Let's see.
Okay. Let me know if
Okay.
I'm too
Hopefully that
loud
should be
as
fine.
well.
No, no, you sound good. You sound good.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you. This is my
to
first
our
time. using-
first
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
time.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say welcome to our special guest, Paul Williams. And is it Williams the third?
It is Williams the third. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am so thrilled. I've been waiting all week for this, and I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your knowledge and your inspiration with us. I'm so excited.
It's my pleasure. I've definitely been looking forward to this all week as well, and I was really excited that you asked me to do this.
Okay. Yeah, my pleasure. I'm just adding the third to your name. So,
For
how
sure.
are you doing this morning? How's the weather where you are?
I'm doing really good right now. I'm with family on the East Coast of New Jersey. It is quite cold. I've been in,
Okay.
LA for 10 years, so
Okay.
this is an adjustment for sure, but I'm getting used to it.
Okay. All right. It's pretty rainy here, so it's really wet and not too cold. It's not too bad. It doesn't get too cold in California, so but it's a little chilly. It's cold for California,
Yeah.
I'll say that. But it's a nice
What
day. I
what part
love the
area are you
rain.
in?
So I'm
Yeah.
down in Sacramento.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
hmm
I don't know how much. I know in LA it never rains, but I'm not sure about Sacramento and what the weather's like up there.
Right now it's rainy. We get a little bit of rain, not a lot of snow unless we head up into certain parts of California. But where I'm at,
Yeah.
it hardly ever snows. It just mostly rains. Last year we didn't get very much. Hopefully we get more this year. And so,
Yeah, that drought life never is never fun.
right, right. All right. Well, welcome. I'm so excited. I'm trying to contain my excitement. But
Me too.
so the whole point in calling you here today, I feel like I've been being inspired to create spaces, where we can gather and talk truth and connect. This is
Mhm.
about like tuning into what's being asked in this moment. And I personally think I'm being asked to connect. And so just being a little bit creative with that in this way. And so
Mhm.
it's also about reaching out and sharing our thoughts with someone and building trust as well. And then it's about taking, opportunities, I feel like, to really ask thought-provoking questions because I feel like we need to think. We want people to think, you know, especially right now. And so that's what this is all about. And I believe what drew me to you, Paul, was that you're very knowledgeable, very informative. I love hearing you talk. There's a way that you share information that's comforting and inviting. Um,
Mhm.
I notice how open you are when you conversate, how open you are to reveal truth. And what I
Mhm.
enjoy is that you're very transparent in how you present your messages and how you share parts of your journey that show vulnerability. And it just feels authentic to me. And so I enjoy, different perspectives that you share.
Thank you
And
so much. That
so
actually means so much
you're
to me, actually.
welcome. You
And
are very
I,
welcome.
I appreciate that you're able to, in this moment, hold space for me, and that even with the work that I'm trying to do online, that you actually see me, with
Mhm,
what I am authentically trying to do, with the best of intentions and
mhm.
to communicate clearly and to help people as best as I can. And it's work that I've come to enjoy and actually come to really love over time. And so even with you, I noticed that authenticity in how you presented yourself online, and that's what drew me to you as well. So I'm glad we were able to connect over time and just stay in touch as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you as well. And so it's amazing how, spirit just kind of connects people. Um, I think for me, what I've wanted to do for a long time, I wish I had the opportunity like a couple of years ago when I started on this path. I've always wanted to connect with people genuinely and like sit down and just have like open, honest communication, like have my questions answered and just have people that I can have discussions with and maybe get clarity on some things. And I
Mhm.
think maybe that would have made the earlier part of my journey a little bit easier. But nevertheless, we're here. I think a lot of the questions have been answered along the way. I still do wonder about some things. And so um, I've learned that we all have definitely things that we can share. We have things of substance to offer. And I think together, it becomes like this collection of experiences and opportunities to just really grow from each other, and share with each other. And so I'm just grateful for this opportunity. I really am. And I appreciate you so very much. And so to start it off, just to kick it off, if you can just give us a little bit, share with us who Paul Williams the third is.
That's a very multifaceted question. Excuse me. Uh, so, sorry.
No worries.
A
Take your time.
little bit of a cough. Excuse me. So who is Paul Williams? I always wanted to be an actor originally as a child, um, but it didn't seem like something that was realistic to do. Excuse me. So I tried to go down the corporate route, got into
Mm,
banking, eventually got into education, and I was very successful, but I still felt unfulfilled in those career paths. And about 10 years ago, I decided that we only get one life, and
yeah.
what good is it if we don't really pursue our passions and pursue our dreams? So I sold everything, drove across the country from DC to LA, and started on the path of acting and training. And during that path, as I was trying to become a better actor and really grow my imagination with my work, I stumbled across some spiritual books on accident. And that led to a spiritual awakening and all of this information and downloads. And um, I started studying history and theology and philosophy. It just spiraled out of control, from there. And over the last 10 years, I've just been taking notes on everything I've learned, taking notes from my meditations and all of the downloads that I receive. Excuse me. And for a while, it was for my own benefit, my own healing journey to
Hmm.
kind of expand my own consciousness, be a better person, be a better actor. And the more I started to like accumulate knowledge and accumulate information, I had a lot of friends come around, strangers that um, just noticed what I was doing, and they
Hmm.
really were like, "Oh, we see you changing drastically," and they kind of wanted to know what it was that I was doing and what I was learning. So I started to just share with everybody around me what I was doing, and I started to see all of their lives slowly start to change, just like my life had started to change. And I just developed this passion and love for kind of just teaching people what I was learning.
Okay.
It's I'm a student, an eternal student, so I'm constantly learning. I
Mhm.
never feel like I know it all. I got it all together. It's just, hey, this whatever is helping me, I just want to share it to help others.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm always intrigued to hear like other people's stories because I find many times we're more alike than we realize.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's always interesting how spirit aligns paths and aligns energies for paths to cross. many times it's for very specific reasons and purposes. It's always
Mhm.
interesting to hear people's stories, and it always blows my mind how I end up crossing paths with people who have very similar experiences as me, like eerily scary, similar experiences. But it's always interesting to hear other people's story. And I think that's why it's really important to connect and share our own experiences. It's so affirming that, we're all on this journey. We're all on a journey, And so
Mhm.
I do have a couple of questions. And so for my first question, for someone who maybe like
Mhm.
experiencing a new journey, and I'm going to call it spirituality or open
Mhm.
practice, someone encountering it for the first time. This could be someone that may even be transitioning from, say, religion or some other
Mhm.
practice. Like, first, what was your awakening experience like, and what advice would you offer those who are transitioning or stepping onto this path?
It's a really good question. My awakening experience, excuse me, with my own type of spirituality, um, came from a religious background, because
Okay.
my family is Christian, Baptist,
Mhm.
and so I was kind of, excuse me, sorry, loosely raised with that, but my parents didn't force it on me.
Okay.
So I kind of grew up asking a lot of questions and,
Mhm.
excuse me, not really receiving too many answers. So when I started to look for answers and I stumbled across a book by Neville Goddard, it
Mhm.
asked the question of, um, what would it feel like if you were God? And I
Mm.
had never thought about that before because God was something that was always outside of me or
Yeah.
in the sky or heaven, something like that. So to place that question on and that pressure and that power on myself felt really deep and
Okay.
massive and expansive. And I remember sitting with that question of what if I were God also?
Mhm.
And then I had this explosion of energy when I sat with that information. Um, it felt like all of my cells were electrified and like tingling, almost like when a TV scrambles and it's like black and white.
Mhm.
That is what my body felt like, and then it expanded from my body to this cafe that I was sitting in, and I not only felt myself,
Mm.
but I felt the whole room at the same time, and I felt this oneness with everything in this electricity and this charge and this power, and so that was what my initial awakening experience was like, and then sorry, excuse me, if you're going from, I think, a religion into spirituality, that transition is really tough because it's about allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to really deprogram everything
Yeah.
that you've been taught and
Mhm.
learned and giving up the pressure of what your family members might think and the closest people to you who a lot of times can run with one certain ideology and kind of stepping out from that and allowing it to be okay that they may or not agree with you stepping out from that, or they may or
Yeah.
may not agree with you learning new information. Um, but for you to allow yourself to be open to receiving different belief systems. In
Mhm.
college, I had a great professor who encouraged us to go to a different religious space. And I think I remember going to like a mosque at the time
Mhm.
and doing a whole prayer and I had to do research and washing my wrists and my ankles and just learning what to do. And it was one of the most peaceful experiences of my life. And it applied to a completely different religion. And
Mhm.
so I think it's allowing ourselves to be open to other people's ideas and then
Yeah.
using discernment because
Yes.
you have to, I think, really attach yourself to what aligns with you. Just because other people
Mhm.
think certain things, even with spirituality, doesn't mean it's right or that it's going to be
Yeah.
true for you.
Very good. I agree with everything you've said. I remember because I'm have kind of a similar background too, and I remember being at Bible study. I've always been a person that seeks, more knowledge. I love reading. I always have. I love seeking into, and I'm gonna say dark spaces. not in
Mhm.
terms of just it being negative, but things that are unknown or
Mhm.
mysterious, you know? And
Mhm.
so I've always been a reader, and I remember being at Bible study and having a book alongside of my Bible, and I remember the pastor kind of glaring over at my book, and I think it was called The Magic of Thinking Big. And I can't remember who the author was, but I understand what you're saying, especially when it comes to certain religions. It really is like a closed-minded type of practice where
Mhm.
they shun anything outside of the Bible. And so it can be difficult breaking outside of
Mhm.
that. And so I completely agree with what you're saying. And I've had those experiences too with my family and my religious groups. And so it's been difficult for me. And as I said,
Yeah.
one of the things that I wish I had early on when I started on this path was to have, like-minded people to sit down and have discussions with. For me, as you were talking about information, that was one of the things that I struggled with is the information part of it and the
Mhm.
guidance. Not that there was a lack of information. I think the challenge was understanding and being directed to the correct information. What's aligned
Mhm.
for you, as you said, because not everything is for you. It's a lot of stuff out there we can dig into, but it's understanding what's for you and avoiding, ending up wasting time, digging in the wrong spaces. And so for
Mhm.
me, that has been a struggle in the beginning is just understanding where to go and what to tap into and having guidance in that way. And
Mhm.
so, um, yeah, so thank you. That was a beautiful response to that question for those that may be having that experience. Another thing that stuck out for me was spiritual hygiene. Um,
Mhm.
we tend to believe that coming into spaces like religion or even open practices that everything is, you know, what do they say? It's what is that saying that we have? Love and light, I think it is. Everything is love and light, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily so. Um, Sometimes we come into these new experiences and we experience what they call limerence, like this very fantasy like experience when we first step into something. And so the spiritual hygiene of this experience was like a wake up call for me. How do you interpret that? How do you interpret spiritual hygiene? Do you think it's necessary?
It's that's also a really good question because you can get lost in excuse me, in this idea of love and light because it has this unrealistic purity about it where
Mhm,
and I think that really is related to religion in a way where it's
mhm,
about being good, always being positive, always doing the right thing. And that's not necessarily the world that we exist in, and it's not necessarily how our minds work as well. And I think that doesn't make space for us to embrace the full spectrum of who we all actually are, because
mm,
no one is all love and light. It's
right.
that doesn't allow room for our shadows. It doesn't allow room
Mhm,
for our darkness. It doesn't allow space for other people's shadows and other people's
yeah,
darkness. And trying to stay in that love and light energy will not only have you rejecting that in others, but then you also reject it in yourself. And I had to learn that for myself as well because I was always taught, especially being a black man, you want to be non-threatening. You want to be perceived as pristine as possible so you can get ahead of in the world.
mhm,
So I had my own things that I had to reprogram as far as how I
mhm,
presented myself and being the good one or people calling me the token or all of that stuff that
mhm,
it was like, oh, that's not really who I am. I have this other side. Yes, I have anger. Yes, I have rage. Yes, I have negative thoughts, but everybody does.
yeah,
And so if I allow myself to hold that space within me of acknowledging my own darkness, allow acknowledging my own shadows, and really going within and understanding it, aligning with it, I can balance it. And if I can balance
Yeah.
it within myself, I can hold space for other people's darkness and other people's shadows as well. Um,
Mhm.
but it's yeah, I really don't subscribe to keeping everything just so positive and just love and light, because no one is like that 24/7. And I think being in our authenticity, we have to like acknowledge the full spectrum of who we are.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Thank you for that. I love the fact that you even took it down to a personal level and being a Black man, because as a Black woman, I have my own struggles and my own perspectives of how that
Mhm,
plays out. And so thank you for sharing that. That gives me another way to look at it. The reason why I asked that question is because I've heard different perspectives on why spiritual hygiene is necessary. Like, on one hand, I've heard that it's not necessary. Like, all we have to do is like stay in this high vibration and be
mhm,
aware. Nothing outside of us can actually harm us. But then on the other hand, it's the other extreme of that. It's recommended to maintain like a heavy level of continuous protection or some form of spiritual hygiene. And I
mm,
feel like both of them can be true, because I feel like truthfully, we are always being brought back to our own state of being, right? And for me, that kind of means like whether we're projecting out energy or thoughts, or whether we're mirroring, seeing that
mhm,
reflection coming back at us as we look at each other, we're always being brought back to self. And so that's why I asked that question, what you think is it necessary, like, to have spiritual hygiene, or as a practice outside of ourselves, as opposed to just trying to maintain our sense of being? Does that make sense? Or the
yeah,
balance
yeah,
within ourselves?
I I completely understand that, and yeah, I think real spiritual hygiene is being discerning of where we are internally, a
Mhm.
and for wherever we are, no matter what it looks like, without judgment. And I think the judgment and sometimes the shame and the guilt of how we can feel about ourselves, or our thought patterns and our emotions and our feelings, and being like, "Oh, I shouldn't feel this way, I shouldn't think like this, I should be doing this instead of that," um, doesn't necessarily propel us forward in a way that's helpful for ourselves. And so it's, yeah, I just, as far as spiritual hygiene goes, I really believe it's just holding space for all parts of ourselves, and then
Yeah.
with turning off the perfectionism aspect about it.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. With that being said, I think there's really certain things for me that stick out. That's one of them, the protection and the spiritual hygiene. The other thing is healing.
Mm,
As I continue to move in this space, I see the requirement to not only heal, but just continuously heal. It's almost like the learning aspect. We're always learning more. We never know everything. And it's the same thing with
mhm,
healing. We never really arrive completely healed. It's again, it's not just that butterflies and roses type of thing. Like, the healing is real. It's real and it's
yeah,
huge, and first off, nothing in this space that we're in right now, it's like it's understanding that nothing is hidden, and then this is an opportunity really for us to grow tremendously if that's what we're looking for. For me, my journey into spirituality started off with healing, the need for healing. And in most parts, it
mhm,
has been just that. It's been all about healing. I mean, there's been some perks here and there and some magic, but mostly it's been about healing. Um, I remember in the beginning of my journey having what they call the dark night of the soul experience, and having
yeah,
this very excruciating moment of transparency, and I remember just sitting on my floor and almost being to the point of breaking. And actually, I think I did break, but it was so painful consciously, but yet so
mhm,
liberating spiritually. And unless I was willing to go there and allow myself to go there and open up to it, it's almost like I could have never been liberated, and I could have never broke through that part of my limitation. So, with that, how
Mhm.
important has healing been for you? And can we even experience spirituality outside of healing? What do you think?
Ooh, um, healing has been the most important part of my spiritual journey, I would say, because
Hmm.
I was somebody who experienced a lot of anxiety, high anxiety,
Hmm.
depression at some points, and spirituality allowed me a space to find new techniques, new tools to assist me with my healing in a way that was internal as opposed to uh, external, coming from somebody else or a book necessarily or somebody else's opinions. I really had to. I think with spirituality, you have to sit with yourself. It's a individualized experience. There's no one way to do it. There's no one way to be spiritual, or and then there's no right or wrong way necessarily. And I think that's why discernment is so important.
Yeah.
And so with healing, I noticed that the more I meditated, the more my mind quieted. So if my mind was a little bit quieter, then my anxiety levels started to decrease. My depression started to decrease as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, with your dark night of the soul, I remember similar. For me, it was very overwhelming. It was a very overwhelming darkness that I was not prepared for when it
Hmm.
happened, and it was very almost all engulfing of my entire being, all of my energy, all of my emotions. It was so overwhelming that it felt terrifying to where I thought, hey, this is so dark. I don't even know if I have the power to overcome this darkness that I'm feeling right now.
Wow.
But there was something within me that was like, oh, but what if you can? What
Hmm.
if you can overcome your own darkness and you're powerful enough to do so? And just that little mustard seed, of
Hmm.
optimism allowed that moment within my dark night of the soul where I felt so engulfed and I didn't know if I can make it through it, allowed me to like, no, I can push past this. I can actually overcome this darkness and I'm actually more powerful than this darkness that's trying to overtake me in a way.
Yeah.
And as I allowed myself to feel more empowered in that moment, the darkness kind of just dissolved and dissipated. And not that it went away because it's still a part of me, but it wasn't ruling me in a
Hmm.
way. It wasn't taking over my thoughts. It wasn't taking over my emotions. My darkness actually became an ally for me.
Yeah.
Instead of something against me, my darkness works with me. It
Yeah.
protects me. It can also guide me. And so that type of healing with spirituality and even overcoming a dark night of the soul has been very transformative for me. And there's no such thing, at least in my perspective, there's no such thing as 100% being healed because
Yeah.
life is always going to present us with circumstances and scenarios as we continue to expand. Um, it kind of feels like a clock pendulum in a way where
Hmm.
as much as you go into your light is how much you go into
Hmm.
your darkness. And the
Mm.
more that you expand into your light is like the deeper your darkness, but then that's the deeper that you can go back into your light. So they kind of work in tandem together where you need both. It's not just staying on one side. You have to go a little bit deeper into your darkness so that you can keep expanding into your light. And I think not being afraid to go into our darkness and to explore it allows us to continue to heal more and more with whatever life presents us with.
Okay. Did you have moments in your experience when you first, um, I guess, became awakened or conscious, where you questioned whether or not you were in dealing with reality or not? Did you struggle with, what is the word I want to say? Um, Reality versus like illusion. Did you have struggles in that way?
It's
have struggles in that way.
In the beginning, I did because you kind of question, is what you're experiencing real? Is it
Mhm.
tangible? And then, or is it, is it just in your mind? Is it just in your imagination? And it doesn't actually have any relevance to your real world. It's not something that is actually true. But the experiences that I was having internally just felt true. It felt
Mhm.
real. And so I started to have to experiment with the reality of it, like with my reality of, okay, I'm feeling like these spiritual truths or these spiritual beliefs can affect my physical reality in a real way. Am I going to allow myself to actually see if it's possible? And then
Mhm.
the more I experimented, the more I saw a conjunction with, oh, I'm actually healing and I'm having more success in my career with these spiritual truths that are only occurring inside of me. No one else is helping me with this. No one else is assisting me or giving me anything. I'm taking this certain idea and I'm applying it to my physical reality. And then my physical reality is mirroring and reflecting that truth back to me. So then that
Yeah.
allowed me to say, like, oh, this is not just in my mind. There's some this is real. And then I think
Yeah.
the more I studied and you get into, let's say, quantum physics and
Mhm.
quantum mechanics, and they start talking about physical reality being made of, waves and it being like a
Yes.
field and you being made of energy. You start pulling your spirituality with science and you see that they kind of overlap in a lot of ways. And I've always been interested in science that includes consciousness
Yeah.
as a part of its study. And so with quantum physics, because they do that, that allowed me to really see all of these spiritual techniques and tools that I was having internally being manifested in physical reality. That was like, okay, now my physical reality is showing me and doing tests and studies that are putting these two things together without me thinking that I might be crazy.
Yeah.
Like there's actual studies that show that there's a connection between all of these things. And
Mhm.
I think allowing ourselves to hold space to say, like, I'm not crazy. This isn't just in my head. Like,
Yeah.
this is actually real and it can affect my reality, even when no one outside of me believes that that's a thing. My
Mhm.
family members may not believe that this is real and true, but as long as I know and I trust it, that can be enough. I validate myself without needing others to validate me because if I need that, I'll probably suppress what I'm feeling or try to like hide it. And so
Mhm.
that was a journey to do that, but um, definitely worth it. Absolutely.
Thank you. I agree. I agree, and nicely said. I am, as I said, I love reading, and so even before my awakening, it was interesting because spirit began to direct me towards people like Zukov and
Mhm,
Tolle,
mhm,
those outside of the box thinkers. And
mhm,
I began to practice these concepts outside of the awakening and not knowing what I was doing, And so,
mhm.
and it's amazing how enlightened I instantly became once the awakening happened. And then I go back to those writings and it has a whole different meaning,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Collective
The
has a
higher we
whole different
evolve, yeah.
meaning. Yes. Yes, it has a whole different meaning once you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is just totally out of this world." And so, um, for me, I think books have played a very significant part, even though I didn't realize it as I was being drawn to that. Um, I see it as a point in time where I awakened to things, but it turns out that the awakening has been happening my whole life is the interesting thing. And
Mhm.
so talking about books, you're writing a book, is that correct?
Yeah, I am writing my first book where everything that I've learned, like I said, in the last decade or
Mhm.
so, um, I just I just every day I would take notes on what I was learning, or I come out of a meditation and I receive all of this information and all of these understandings, and I would just write them down so I wouldn't forget them. so I could come
Okay.
back to them. And if there was a morning or a day where I needed a pick me up or just something to like align my mindset in the morning, I could go to my notes and be like, oh yeah, I remember this, or I remember that. And sometimes I would have illustrations of things that didn't come through by words. It would come through experiences, and I would draw it out. And so I realized like, oh, I have 10 years of notes that I was just
Mm,
taking for myself
mhm.
that could actually help and assist other people as well
Yeah.
if it resonates with them. And so that's how I started making content, was just taking a paragraph and then freestyling a video about it and then seeing how it resonate with an audience. And so the response that I've gotten this past year has been like, okay, my notes actually do resonate with people. They do actually like help. So that's helped encourage me to want to write this book and put it out as soon as I can.
Okay. I'm excited for you, so I can't wait. I'll definitely be supporting you. Um, so those were my questions that I wanted to present. So now that you've answered my questions, I'd like to offer room just to invite you to open up about anything that you feel needs to be shared and illuminated in this present moment. Is there anything?
Um, I would say that at this current place in my life, the most important thing that I'm learning, if it resonates with you and your audience, is finding this energy of surrender.
Mm,
That has been um, a mountain that I've had to climb, where so many great philosophers and gurus all talk about it. And it's
mhm,
come to me through many different downloads as well about this energy of surrendering, but how to do it in a tangible way with our day-to-day responsibilities, kind of thing. And the more I've been able to become more present, to not really put too much focus on my past, to not really put too much focus onto my future, and to be like, okay, this is my moment. This is how life is supposed to
mm,
go. I
yeah,
surrender to this being perfect. I surrender to this moment being right on time, and I don't need to think about anything. I
yeah,
trust that whatever I need to say in the moment, I will say, and it'll be right and it'll be okay. Whatever I need to know at any given moment, I'll know it, and I wasn't always like that. I always felt like I had to overthink or over prepare for my future. Um, Worst case scenario so that I can come up with a strategy to avoid certain things.
yeah,
And it kept me in a loop in my mind
mm,
all the time. And as long
yeah,
as we're thinking, we're unable to be present. And so the more I keep surrendering to where I am and just being like, I don't need to think as much, the
yeah,
healthier and more powerful I felt over time. And so it's a journey, but I love
mhm,
encouraging people to find that energy of surrendering and just being okay with where you are and where you're at, and that you're
yeah,
always on top.
yeah. That's good. I like that. Thank you. On point. Um, I did have one more question that just came up to my mind. You mentioned about working, well, you did explain a little bit about it. Was there any struggle with your transition into spirituality when you were in corporate America? Did you have any like issues with that transition being in corporate America still?
By the time it was actually a transition from corporate into my acting, into my artistry with the spirituality. And so
Okay.
when I was using it in corporate America, um, it was mainly trying to teach myself how to think positively
Mm,
when I felt so excuse me, when I felt so unfulfilled with my
okay.
corporate work. So there were a lot of days where I would just wake up and be like, today's going to be a good day.
Mm,
And that is actually a cliche phrase, but it's also an affirmation at the
yeah.
same time. And
Hmm.
that started to teach me like, oh, if I affirm this in the morning, I can get through this struggle a lot
Yeah.
easier. And I started to see like I would have better days if I affirmed that from the beginning. And
Hmm.
then the more that worked, the more that kind of built my strength in my belief in affirmations, in my own power to say like, oh, if I claim something, let me allow it to happen. Let me
Yeah.
allow the universe to kind of show me proof that once I do that, I'm going to get something back from it. I'm going to have receipts. And so that was what helped me a lot, especially in my corporate life, where I was doing things that I just didn't want to be doing, that
Okay.
didn't fill me or do anything like that. And then when I went into acting, um, it I started to see more success the more I believed that my spiritual gifts were actually tangible and not in my head. The more I believed in myself, the more authentic I became, the more opportunities just started to draw towards me.
Okay. Yes, affirmations. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you for that, Paul. I appreciate all of what you're sharing.
Thank you.
Just to kind of wind it down a little bit, is there anything that you're offering, or is there like any contribution to your mission? Like, do you offer services, products, anything that I can share for you here in case anyone is interested and want to follow up?
I'm actually working on right now setting up a service where I can do coaching as well
Okay.
and guidance. That was something that actually put off for a while, just because as I started to share my work, I didn't want to make it about money, and I didn't want to make it
Mhm.
about s- offering services and courses or anything like that, because I felt like that would take away from my own messaging and kind of skew what I was doing, because I would start to be doing things for the money or for sales.
Yeah.
So I held off on it for a long time, for my own sake of what I was doing. But um, as I've seen how so many people have been helped, I'm actually establishing that right now. So I want to say in the next month it'll be set up.
Okay. What about a place where we can donate? Do you take donations, or do you have like a wish list, anything like that?
I do take donations. I have a link tree on my TikTok and Instagram at Paul R. Williams 3, where there's a donations button for anyone who would like to donate.
Okay. What's your TikTok?
Paul R. Williams 3.
Okay. I'm gonna put that here. See. I hope I got that right.
Yep, perfect.
Okay. And you can donate there. If you're watching this and you want to follow Paul, you can go over to TikTok and follow, click on his link tree for more information, more services, and to donate. I personally feel like we should be um, compensated for the spiritual work that we do. Even what you've described today is like a life full of research and, you know, work that you've put in to be able to equip yourself to help others. And I think it's okay. But I also feel like that like the universe will also compensates us when we take that position. The universe always makes a way and opens doors and opportunities and pours out, things that we don't even expect. And so but if you want to donate to Paul, you can do that by following him on TikTok. I, for one, will be going over right after and giving a donation to you. Let's see what else. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for your willingness to be open to this discussion. I get so much life out of your encouragement that you share. It's always on point. It's always on point. So y'all go over and follow Paul. And I just want to end it by saying I just sense like a humility that's just so beautiful about you. And I'm sorry I have to use that word, but I don't know another word to describe like the sense that I get about you. It's something very humble about you that I appreciate. It's different. It's different.
I
Um,
I thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I also know that when we talk about people that are very humble and are very loving and kind, there's another side to that too. Sometimes the most humble people or the most humble individuals have endured like great loss. They've endured great suffering. And so I know there's another side to that. And so I say that with a level of understanding. But thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. I appreciate you. And just to end things off, I'll just ask a question to end it out. What has been your most valuable life lesson?
That's quite a question. To this day, my most valuable life lesson has been that there's more power than we really realize in being our most authentic selves, and that comes from self-love. And
Mhm,
self-love felt really generic of a term for me for many, many years. It took me a while to really
mhm,
understand it, but it was really realizing that self-love was being like, man, I love myself. I
mhm,
love I love my taste in music. I love what I think is funny. I love my flaws. I love my mistakes and the lessons that I learned. I
mhm,
love how I view life. The more I started to love myself, the less validation that I needed outside of myself. And that allowed me to peel back many layers of who I am and also who I'm not at the same time. And so I think finding my own sense of self-worth and self-love um, is being more empowering has been my biggest life lesson by far. And then that allowed me to learn boundaries and protect
mm.
myself. And
Yeah.
so it's very like layered once we start to tap into that within ourselves.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for taking time away from your family to come and talk with me. I appreciate that so very much. And if there's anything that I can ever do, to help your mission or be of assistance, don't hesitate. Okay. You have a
Thank you
sister
so
over
much.
here. Okay.
We're definitely family, and I've
Yes.
loved this whole session. It's been amazing. Um, your energy is beautiful.
Thank
Your
you.
questions are great and deep and soulful. And I have a lot of gratitude just for us being able to share this space and this time right now. It's been very fulfilling for me. So thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. Likewise, I share in your sentiments. And so thank you so very much. Yeah, and so I'll go ahead and end it here with Paul Williams III. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Don't forget to reach out, like, share, comment, support our brother in the work that he does. He has a book coming out, so definitely go over and follow him. Lots of wisdom and inspiration to share with us. And so, thank you again, Paul, and we'll talk
Thank you.
later.
Sounds
Namaste.
good.
All right.
Namaste.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.